Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Would you please recognize our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counselor Elliott. Counselor Kennedy.
Here.
Counselor Laurie.
Here.
Counselor Martin. Counselor Madonsa.
Here.
Counselor Mercier.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Counselor Nguyen.
Here.
Counselor Broderick.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. On the city clerk's portion of the agenda, we have minutes of the city council May 8th, also minutes of the transportation subcommittee May 8th for acceptance. Motion to approve by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next we have, on the city manager's portion of the agenda, communications from the city manager responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you. One of the items I want to talk about is the Parks and Recreation program that was packed out this week. The expanding Parks and Recreation. I thought it was great. When I made this proposal a couple of weeks ago to expand and to look at expanding, I really never dreamed of what came back this week. This was really something great from Parks and Recreation. And just very quickly, swimming lessons, traditional arts and crafts at 3 sites, using the indoors in inclement weather, 12 new recreation locations, and just incredible. It would expand by $154,000, but again, we're talking about classes in taekwondo, tennis, arts, crafts, field hockey, and lacrosse, and it would probably bring about 70 new jobs for the kids in the city for the summer. I'd like to see if we can send this right to Parks and Recreation, the subcommittee, to refer to Councilor Mercier.
Sure. Motion by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Broderick to send this to the Parks and Recreation.
Send to Parks and Recreation.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend the manager for this because it may not seem like a big deal, Parks and Recreation, not that dramatic, but when you think of the youth of our city and how we try to ward off crime and we try to keep our children occupied, that it isn't just in the wintertime that we keep our children busy through going to school, but they need this guidance more in the summertime when they're out of school and they have all this extra time on their hands, and the good weather hopefully will be here and the rain will perhaps go away, but the summers are awful hot, and it's not every family that can pack up the family and go off to the mountains or to the beach. A lot of people are Lowellians that are staying right here in the city, and they're homebound, and because of finances and economic downturn, and people just can't take that family trip. We have to think of those people that we leave behind as well, and so it's nice to hear Councilor Laurie's motion to see what we can do to expand what we have. What we have is good, but to expand it to the way that I see it here and the money that's going to come in, this is remarkable. And I will schedule a subcommittee meeting for next Monday at 5 o'clock. I'm on the committee with Councilor Laurie as well as Councilor Noon. So we will look forward to hearing from Tom Belgard and the rest of what you have to say, Mr. Manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Noon?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second Councilor Mercier on this. This is the money well spent. It's important that we proactive on addressing crime and having all this facility, rehab fixed and ready for the kid this summer. It's a great thing. And I want to also wish that we can expand this as year-round. And so I'm looking forward to more extended discussion with Councilor Rita Mosia's next Monday subcommittee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Broderick and then Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a great motion, and I also want to commend the manager and staff for bringing this forward. And I think it was brought up that there is an expense, but I look at this as an investment. It's an investment in the youth, in the kids. It gives them something constructive to do, gives them some guidance, and especially in the summer when there's no school, and that's when people get bored, and they tend to, as they say, restless idle hands do the devil's work. So I think this is a tremendous investment on the city's part, and I look forward to seeing how it goes and the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please let me publicly apologize. Some subcommittee meetings have 4 members. I didn't realize Parks and Rec did, and Councilor Elliott is a member as well. I'm sorry, Councilor Elliott. I didn't have the sheet in front of me, but Councilor Mendonça had it in his phone, so I thought we wouldn't have thank God we had the phone on. But anyways, I'm sorry, Councilor Elliott, it's a 4-member.
Council Mercia, no
Sorry.
apologies necessary. I'm not sure what subcommittees I'm on sometimes myself.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy, on the motion?
Yeah, just briefly on the motion, I just would like to commend Councilor Laurie on the work and that he's put into this and the initiative that he's shown, and also the city manager's office for their response. And it sounds like the program is adequately funded and will be beneficial for the summer. You can't spend too much money on the youth, so anything that we can do is a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie?
No, I just want to say one more time, thank you to the manager. Tommy Belgard, the head of Parks and Recreation, what a great job they did putting this together. And as I looked at the map right across the city, you're going to see these sites open. And there was a partnership, I guess, with CTI, the Merrimack Valley Food Bank, and I don't have the other one in front of me. But some of the kids will be getting lunches this year. If not, they'll be supplying lunch for the kids of the city. So when I look at something like this, and I think Councilor Broderick used the right word, an investment, when a family comes into the city, as Councilor Mercia says, 3, 4 kids, they don't have the money for the camps, it's quite expensive. To be able to supply families with this type of program for the summer, and I believe Lowell High is the only school in the area not charging its athletes. So when you see what we can bring for the children of the city, I think it's outstanding, and I think it's an investment for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Any further comments?
Yeah, before we move on, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, regarding the municipal lien auctions, I was disappointed to see that it's going to take more than 3 months. And I would hope that we could probably move that schedule up so that we can do it before then. I was hoping that we would be able to do it during this fiscal year and that we would do it then during every fiscal year once. But now this pushes it, the schedule that you have proposed will push it back into well beyond budget deliberations and 2 months into the next fiscal year.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, to respond to the councilor, I understand the councilor's sentiments on this, and we are anxious to get this done and get it done right, and we want to put the appropriate amount of time in, but also try to speed it up if at all possible. There is a public notice period we have to go through. That moved us into June. Then we felt we may as well just grab the new tax titles that come on in June and then rebundle based upon the information we receive from the potential bidders. That puts us into the early July, and with other schedules, the date that we put forth was the one that made sense. But we're certainly going to, I understand your sentiments, and we're going to try to move that, see if we can move that up. I do want to note that even if we were to be able to somehow get it done before this June 30th in terms of actually holding the auction, the money any money we bring in wouldn't, if it came in before June 30th, it wouldn't actually become available until sometime in December or January, so it would be beyond the period of this budget. Early July, it would roll into the next year. So once you get into the next year, you're into the next year, whether it's July or August. But I couldn't agree more that this is something we want to clear off this backlog, this problem, and that's what we've been working at. And I appreciate the councilor's support for this and his championing this over the last couple of months. It's then our goal to actually do this on an annual basis. We couldn't agree more with the sentiment that Councilor Kennedy put forth.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Mr. Managers for the report on the explore percentage of the art policies and encourage public art in the city. Report on it. I'd like to further discussion on this subject. If we could refer this to a public safety, the arts subcommittee to expand on this or more discussion on this matter. I would make a motion that we send it to the art subcommittee.
Motion by Councilor Noon to refer this to the Arts and Culture Subcommittee. Seconded by Yes, yeah. Seconded by Councilor Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Any further discussion on the city manager's communications? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, we received a number of emails from the clerk's office today. I think we all received them regarding travel. And it was also CC'd to you. What is the next step? Was that just Mr. Oh, sorry, Mr. Manager, go ahead.
Sure. Excuse me. As you recall, Council, you made a request last week that we prepare a report on out-of-state travel over the last 5 years with specific listing of the various trips, who went, the amount of money, the sources of funding, and so on. In order to begin that process, I asked the city clerk to get me a listing of the actual trips that were voted by the council, and then from that we will generate the list that would then go in and start to delve into the detail. It's going to be a time-consuming process, but we'll put the time into it over the course of the next whatever time it takes to get this out to you. Unfortunately, we don't budget by specifically by out-of-state travel. We budget by travel, out-of-state travel, but also conferences. So some of the conference fees are put into training lines. The travel is put into travel lines. We have to kind of compile all of that. Then we have to actually go in and try to figure out what the sources of funding were. That should be fairly easy, so long as it's referenced in the vote, and I think most of them do have that. But the city clerk put those documents together, sent it out to me, and also copied the council. And so now it's just a matter of getting the staff to put the time into it.
Okay, I didn't think it was going to be that complicated. I actually presumed that
I didn't either.
there would be some tracking mechanism either through your office, excuse me, or the auditor's office, that we could just query a report to say this is the amount of money that was spent on travel, this is the amount of money that it costs for registration, this is per diem, this is gas mileage. So when I saw all the emails, I didn't want to take all this staff time to get, all these PDF files. I really thought it was just a matter of clicking, really, we should be, I think, tracking this. So what is the plan for the future? I think it's important that, that we know how much we're spending on travel and et cetera. Mr. Manager.
Oh, Council, we can give you breakdowns of travel. We can give you breakdowns of training. We can give you breakdowns of mileage. Unfortunately, the mileage is in-state and out-of-state. The travel is in-state and out-of-state. And the conferences are in-state and out-of-state. So and then we don't designate it necessarily we have to go in and do some compilation to determine what the source of funding was for each one of those as well. But we'll certainly work with the auditor and perhaps see if there's for the future, if there's a different way that we could do it.
Okay, considering there's a data analyst, I thought this was going to be right up his alley, and it's something that was being done. So I think it's important when we go to budget time, we talk about performance standards, how much we're spending, how much time is being spent. I guess, and I asked this at another meeting, these individuals going on these trips, is there overtime associated with it? People taking vacation time or not? So it's just an area I think that we need to tighten up on, and I thought that would have been data that was available. But I'll look forward to the report, and I just thought there was an easier way to do this, and it seems like there's an awful lot of time being spent tracking, trying to get this information. But I did make the request, and I do want the information, so thank you.
Mr. Mayor Murphy.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, sir. On the subject of out-of-state travel, I noticed that since beginning of 2008 to date, we have approximately 400 out-of-state traveled. I just want to know the percentage as to of those out-of-state traveled paid for by the city of Lowell taxpayers was grant. Do you estimate on the top of your head, if you can?
Mr. Manager?
Council, I'd have a tough time giving a real honest percentage number. The vast majority, 75+%, are paid through the law enforcement. I would guess between grant money and the law enforcement trust fund. Very, very rarely do we have any out-of-state travel paid by the general operating budget of the city.
I would think that it make more sense going forward to break it down rather than going backward and to try to break down the over 400 past 5-year travel in terms of where it's to and the mileage and so on and so forth. So I would support ideas of going forward and break it down so that we have it as to where to and what department and where the travel or the fund come from. So it'll be very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the city manager's communications? Motion to accept and place on file by Councilman Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next we have communication from city manager, request approval of out-of-state travel, 1 for the Department of Planning and Development, 2 for the Lowell Police Department. What's the wish of the council? Besides,
Motion to take
Councilor
them
Mercer.
all together, and I'll second that.
motion to approve all 3, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have an order for a 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Reading by title in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. Okay, so wish of the council, move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to execute a land disposition agreement at 49 and 55 through 57 Rock Street. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Reading by title in City Council vote authorizing the city manager to enter into a land disposition agreement with Habitat for Humanity of Greater Lowell Incorporated regarding property located at 49 and 55 through 57 Rock Street pursuant to the Acre Urban Revitalization and Development Plan, and to consummate the sale and disposition of said property. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Broderick. Any discussion? Council Laurie.
I just had one question. When this is finalized, is this a type of place where we'll be paying taxes? They are. When I saw the location of where it was and who was buying it, I anticipated a yes answer, but I wasn't sure. And this is a great project, taking properties and putting them back on the tax roll and giving people a place to live, so thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have an ordinance to amend Section 266-85, reserved dwelling parking spaces. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to subsection 266-85, reserved dwelling parking space. I'd entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing on June 12th at 7 p.m. Motion by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Kennedy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. That'll be June 12th at 7 p.m. Next, we have a vote to transfer $7,500 for the Middlesex Street light installation. In City Council vote, order to transfer funds for street light upgrades ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the amount of $7,500 be transferred from the JAM Urban Renewal Capital Account number 01824175-580304 to DPW Land and Buildings Overtime Account number 04007951-513000. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Second reading by title in City Council vote. Ordered to transfer funds for streetlight upgrades in the amount of $7,500. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any discussion? Councilor Mendoza.
Well, I'm actually pleased with this transfer because even though we're transferring to do this work, in actuality, the city will be saving money from what it had budgeted in order to have an outside contractor do the work. So we're going to be doing the work internally, and we're going to spend $7,500 thereabouts, or instead of the $12,000 that was estimated for a contractor to do it. So I think this is very good for the city.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councilor Mendoza. A couple of weeks ago, I brought that motion forward to look at the amount of work we were giving out to private contractors, and would it be better to keep the work in-house? And here's a good example. The private contractor comes back with, I think, a $12,000 contract, and we can do it in-house for, I think, $7,500. So there's $4,000 right there. And when I brought that motion, this is the type of idea I was looking at, and I want to commend, I think it was Mr. Bakey who did that. He brought to keep it in-house. So this is what I thought about when I made the motion, and I'm glad to see it's working. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to congratulate Ralph Snow. This is good planning and thinking ahead, forward thinking. And Councilor Laurie made an excellent motion few meetings ago, but it looks like was already in the works, and it's good to see that they're doing this type of analysis. We have a lot of talent in our own crews, and to be able to use them to do work like we've done on the bridge, and it's very nice to see it. We save money, and we keep people employed at the same time, so it's a win-win. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just in reference to the discussion regarding contracting out, I think it's important to note that we have been looking at, every time we do something, looking at an in-house and a contract process. Last year, we did a very large construction project on Central Street that was probably one of the largest public works projects our DPW had ever really taken on. And they were very excited with the possibility that they could go out there and do that type of project work that they don't typically or have not typically had the chance to do. In some cases, it makes sense to contract out, and clearly in other cases, like Central Street, where we ended up saving I want to say about $150,000, and this one we saved $4,500. It makes sense to do it in-house. So we're going to continue to use our work with our employees to see what makes sense to do in-house, and certainly try to utilize the talents that they bring to the table.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How much is in the overtime account right now, Mr. Manager?
I don't have that number
I
off the top.
guess the other question is, it's good that we're doing it in-house, but why does it have to be in addition to? It's an additional $7,500. All this work has to be done on overtime? It can't be done on straight time?
In all likelihood, this work would be done on overtime because our electricians are so busy with all of the other work that they're doing, working in the various facilities right now.
Well, it'd be nice to save $12,000 and have this work done during the regular day.
Correct.
Why can't we do that? I guess is my question.
Because there's so much work, and we did a tour just the other day of the school buildings. The variety of school projects that require our electricians really takes up all of their time.
What's in this account right now, Mr. Manager, for overtime that we have to transfer more in?
I believe that is this the $12,900?
$11,784.
Prior to the transfer, right?
Yeah, right.
Correct.
So
That we'll be using that as we go through the year, and this money from the urban renewal funding is available to be utilized for this purpose, and this will allow us then to continue the work on all those other maintenance items throughout the city.
So there's money in there. We're just adding more into why didn't we just use all that first, and then if something else, another need arises? I guess that's my point. There's money there. This is in addition to, so.
Right. Based upon the workload that we have with the work orders, we anticipate using all of that. So before we embark upon this additional project, we wanted to make sure the funding was there.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the vote? Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
No.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote to execute the Second Amendment to the Land Disposition Agreement, 110 Canal Street, the former Freudenberg Building. Motion to waive the full reading by Counsel Kennedy, second by Counsel Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title and City Council vote. Authorizing the City Manager to execute a Second Amendment to a Development and Land Disposition Agreement with Trinity Hamilton Canal Limited Partnership regarding 110 Canal Street located in the area of and pursuant to the Jackson, Appleton, Middlesex Urban Revitalization and Development Plan. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Counsel Kennedy, second by Counsel Broderick. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. The next vote we have under item 9 is also listed under 13 as miscellaneous petitions. Joseph L. Lapine requests the City Council approve the sewer tie-in to residents located at 38 Fox Street, Drake, Mass. Entertain a motion to take the two together.
Approval?
Motion to take together by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted.
Motion to approve?
Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Motion in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Drake and Joseph L. Lapine relative to property located at 38 Fox Street, Drake, Mass. Motion to approve by Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
I had a comment.
Yes, Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Considering the fact that we do have some information before us and the city does approve this, I have no problem with supporting it now, as I delayed it last week because I didn't see any permission granted. But at that time, I asked, what is the procedure to have a tie-in? If I lived in Drake on the border and I need a border of the city of Lowell, what would I have done? Or if I lived in Tingsboro or Tewksbury, what procedure would I have needed to follow to have it tied in? Strictly pick up the phone and call a city councilor to have that happen? Or do you have to go before the proper board? So that's what I'm that's what I asked for last week. I didn't get any response to that. I just want to know what the procedure is, and I don't expect you to tell me right now, but I'd like a report as to what's the process for that, because we learned that a city engineer said, oh, go see the council. So go make a motion, go see it. I don't know that that's the proper procedure. I want to know the proper procedure because it baffled me to hear that, and I just wanted to know. Other than that, I support this. Sorry for the delay, but we have to go by the law here, and that's what I was trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As I explained or tried to explain last week, I'm the one that put the matter on the agenda. And I did that because I got a call from the Lapine family saying that they were having difficulty with their sewer tie-in. So after I got that call, I called the city engineer. And in fact, the person that was going to do the sewer tie-in also went to the city engineer's office. The person that was going to do the sewer tie-in was told that it needed council approval. I was told by the city engineer that it needed council approval. The motion I had on last week was for council approval. It was not my responsibility to gather the proper paperwork or to do any of the administrative process that had to be done. The city engineer told me that it required council approval, and that's what I put on the agenda. It was not a case of the Lapine family just calling up a city councilor and getting a tie-in. And I don't really understand why you would think that would have been the case. All I was doing was responding to a request from the family. I looked into it with the city engineer. She told me it needed council approval. The motion last week was for council approval. That's it. That's it. As far as the paperwork and who has to sign off on what, that really doesn't have anything to do with me. I assumed that since I was speaking with the city engineer, that all of that stuff had already been done. Evidently, it wasn't, but I didn't know that.
Well, I'd like to respond to that.
Incidentally, the motion for right now is for council approval, but
But I'd like to comment to his...
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to comment to that. I'm not saying that it was up to you to gather all the paperwork and go before the proper department, but I thought that a resident or person, a petitioner, would go before the proper board, get all the paperwork in order, and that was the responsibility of that particular department, whether it be the law department to present these votes before us, whether it be the city engineer to bring that paperwork before this council for approval. I never in 17 years, and I'm not faulting you. You did what you thought you had to do, and actually you probably did it right, but I would have thought it would have came from the proper department to bring it before the council on the agenda for the vote. I didn't think it had to go to an individual councilor for that approval. That's all I'm saying. That's all I didn't understand the procedure, and I'm asking the manager to present me or this council, whoever wants it, with the proper procedure. And how does it get on this agenda? Through a council or through the department? That's like me saying, a constituent wants to file a claim with the city, so I call the law department, and the law department tells me as a councilor to put something on the agenda to to approve a claim or refer it back to the law department. It's up to the law department to put it on this agenda, not for a councilor to come in and say, I want to file a claim on behalf of this. If you could understand where I'm going with that. That's simply the order I wanted to know, that's all.
Thank you. Counselor Elliott,
Move the question. Motion to move the question.
move the question. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a communication to accept the resignation of Marion Dodge and thank her for her service. Motion by Counselor Noon, seconded by Counselor Laurie. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So voted. Counselor Laurie?
I was just going to ask if we send a letter to her and thank her for her
Sure.
service, that's all.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next, we have a communication to appoint Van Peck to the ZBA as an alternate. Motion to approve by Counselor Laurie, seconded by Counselor Noon. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. And we have Van Peck here this evening.
Good evening. My name is Van Peck, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I look forward to serving our community in this capacity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have a communication to appoint Kate Lassard to the Immigration Assistance Commission.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Counselor Mercia, seconded by Counselor Noon. Roll call, please.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
9 yeas.
And we also have Kate Lassard here.
I also just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Next, we have subcommittee reports. Any discussion? Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to offer a brief report, as in my capacity as chair of the Housing Subcommittee, did have the opportunity to go today to the groundbreaking or ribbon-cutting ceremony for the first property that the city has successfully taken into receivership and is about to now, and will sell to be occupied by new residents. This was a property, 128 6th Street. You may recall the receivership program came before the Housing Subcommittee, I think originally pushed by Mayor Milanazzo, maybe even before he was mayor when he was a councilor. And the Attorney General has been aggressive in trying to get cities and towns the tools they need, the legal tools they need to do this. And so the city now has adopted an ordinance that allows for this, and we had a success story that was announced today at 128 6th Street. Required an awful lot of coordination among departments. The reorganized Division of Development Services was integral with Mr. Bakey's group, Kendra Amaral, Mr. Marcilla, the building commissioner, and it required housing court action. And for anybody who's ever been at the housing court, it's it's not a place for the unfamiliar. And so it does present challenges, and sometimes things seem to move slowly. But this is certainly an improvement on 6th Street. It's already led, we think, or hope, there's been some adjacent or nearby properties that have also fixed up their places. So it goes to show that with some persistence, a troubled property, there had been over 50 police calls to this property in the last 2 years. There had been 3 illegal units, I thought maybe 2, one in the basement, 1 or 2 in the attic, and this was a 2-family house, so we had 4 to 5 units illegally occupying this building. So I think it's a credit to do to the past council for adopting the ordinance, but also to the present council for seeing it through, and to the administration, particularly Development Services Division, for making this a reality, this project. So I know there was some press at the event, and there'll likely be some publicity surrounding it, but I wanted to highlight it here tonight.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, we did have a meeting with the Transportation Subcommittee, and I think we've come to a close on the park and permit signs. What we have come up with is language that really distinguishes how large the area could be, say 20 feet. It has to be posted. One of the major changes is now the sign has to be placed in a location where it maximizes parking spaces for its neighbors. No longer can you just put the sign in the middle of the yard. You have to maximize for the neighbors. Another change is it's one sign per parcel. So if there's a 4-family, there'll be only one sign. As far as the fees go, it's going to stay at $10 a year. We looked at that, and we're going to keep the sign at $10 a year. There's going to be an annual renewal fee of $10, but it will be waived for residents 70 years or older who qualify for real estate tax exemption. By putting that $10 fee on, I think we're going to take a lot of signs, I think the committee believed also, away from the, off the streets. A lot of these signs have stayed at the homes after they've been sold. They've stayed at the apartments after they've been sold. And, of course, they won't be paying a renewal fee because they won't be getting a letter. So those signs will no longer be in effect. And the other day I had a complaint. I went out and walked in one of the streets in the neighborhoods with an individual. I saw one house with 2 signs. They had 1 or 2 handicap signs, which I don't think were supplied by the city, to try to take the parking away from other residents. And they had 2 signs in the windows. That's just unacceptable. So hopefully, by putting teeth in the new ordinance and putting out the renewal fee, we'll find out how many signs are really out there, which ones are needed, which ones aren't. And if there are conflicts in the neighborhood, these changes will have some teeth in them, so we'll be able to enforce the ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those interested, again, that's June 12th, the public hearing. Any, Councilor Elliott.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a report from the Lowell Commission on Disability, which I have been appointed to by you, Mr. Mayor. We had a meeting last Thursday, here in the council chambers, and there are a number of action items that the commission asked me to bring forward, and I'm happy to do so, and also one motion, Mr. Mayor. And some of these are simple enough, but apparently they've asked to have some of these changed, but there hasn't been any action on it yet. The first one is to have the website updated. There is a page for the Lowell Commission on Disability, but apparently many of the members are they're not on the commission anymore on the website. The website still has someone that's still a former city councilor, but Caulfield, and there's a number of them that are not accurate. So that was the first thing that they asked to have changed and updated. There was also discussion. It was a 2-hour meeting. It was a very productive meeting, by the way, and there was very good attendance by members and also individuals in the audience. The second item is on the bottom of the webpage, under the Lowell Commission on Disability, there's a telephone number. That telephone number goes to the cemetery. So apparently they're getting calls at the cemetery for people looking for assistance for the Lowell Commission on Disability. I know the secretary, the staff person that was once got a stipend. That stipend has been cut, and that telephone number is still there. But the issue was raised because there was a woman that was in City Hall as the manager last week, and apparently she went to 4 or 5 departments till she finally landed in Neighborhood Services, and she was just trying to get in touch with someone from the Commission on Disability. And she came in, and she was visibly upset because she was just looking for some assistance and someone to speak to. And she was bounced around quite a bit. She said it was well over an hour. So first and foremost, the chairman, Ron Lastman, his number, he's happy to put his number on the website so people can call him directly, and anyone that may need assistance or direction in getting some help can call him. Apparently there's between 8 and 10 calls that they used to get a week, so there is a need for it anyway. But just very briefly on some other issues, there was a motion made by the members of the commission to have the city report. And first of all, let me say that they were grateful for the appropriation, Mr. Manager, of $20,000. They were very grateful. They haven't spent it yet. They're looking at ways to do it, and they're looking at getting an encoder, working with LTC to allow for closed caption at home. And I think that is that's a very good thing, and they're very enthusiastic. So that'll help the deaf people in our community. But along with that discussion was they would like to know how many parking tickets have been issued in the last 3 years, if possible, for handicap parking violations, and the amount of revenue that was generated from it. So I told them I would bring that motion forward. So I don't know if I need to make that in the form of a motion to get a report, Mr. Mayor, on this, but I will do so, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Motion by Councilor Elliott to ask for a report on the parking
Second.
tickets. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Councilor
Thank you.
Elliott.
Just a couple more items, Mr. Mayor. One is, the next thing that they're doing is they're in the Lowell Commission on Disability. They'll be putting together a cable show. And I also wanted to say that LTC, they've been working closely with Jessica Wilson, and she has been very cooperative and number one, getting the closed caption item done as soon as possible. Apparently the piece of equipment, the encoder, is about $5,000, but the associated cost, believe it or not, and I was a little bit surprised that there isn't software out there. The cost associated with this is literally getting a stenographer to listen to the meetings and to be able to type in manually what is being said. And so the first meetings that they are going to do once they find somebody will be the city council meetings. So, and I did ask the question, is there not technology, some software that when people speak into the mic, it's automatically encoded? And that's not the case. I guess it's being worked on, but it's not the case. So any closed caption anybody sees is a result of somebody literally typing the words onto a screen and it being recorded. So that's their prospective use of the money. So they are also going to do a cable show they hope to do it in September to let people know in the community what resources available that the city has. And I think that was, and the other thing they wanted was a filing cabinet. Apparently all the records right now, Mr. Manager, are being stored at Mr. Lastman's house, and they wanted a location to put a filing cabinet and store the files from the meetings, minutes, etc., in one central location. I don't know where that would be, but that was one request. The other request was that they wanted the ADA coordinator for the city to attend the meetings. He is a member of the commission, and he hasn't been to any of them in quite some time. So, and that's Mr. Singleton. So, that was a list of items they wanted me to bring forward, and I appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to accept is a report of progress by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Kennedy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Kennedy.
I suppose I should give a report. The Joint Committee on School Facilities met last Friday and took a tour of the Riley School, the Robinson School, and Lowell High School. The tour lasted about just a little over 2 hours. It was pretty well attended, and we looked at some of the members of the school committee chose those 3 sites because those were sites where the problems were a little worse than in other schools. The joint subcommittee will be meeting next Tuesday to go over what they saw last Friday and then make recommendations after that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Laurie.
I just want to say thank you to Councilor Kennedy and school committeemen. I believe it was Jimmy Leary who put this together. You know, you're going to be voting on a lot of money over the next couple of years, even this year, on improvements to the schools. And it was good, and I appreciate being invited out to see the schools, see what type of facilities they have. I was impressed at least 2 of the schools, the principals came and met us there. And I'll tell you, I was a little put off at the high school. I thought the headmaster might show up. And he wasn't there. And, you know, personally, I just felt that was a little off. But I want to thank the principals who did show up at the Riley School and the Robinson School, but it did give us a little insight. And yes, I was disappointed at the high school that the headmaster didn't show up. The city manager was there, many of the councilors, many of the school committee people, and we're being asked to spend money down there, and we should with the landlords. But I just, you know, personally, I felt a little out that the headmaster couldn't stick around and just walk us around the building. And I just want to say that personally. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Motion to accept is report of progress by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Any further subcommittee reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to a claim for personal injury and entertain a motion to refer to the Law Department.
So moved.
So moved
For
by...
report and recommendation.
For report and recommendation by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Moving into the motions portion of the agenda, we have a motion by Councilor Martin, request the city manager report on progress made with implementing downtown regulations suggested by the police superintendent.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I had a little bit to say about this subject matter last week, and actually what prompted me to file these motions were as a combination of the transfer that was on the agenda last week, and then the chief's explanation as to why that transfer was necessary, where some of those funds go. To recap, the council was asked to transfer approximately $160,000 additional appropriation for the police department for this year, last week. Those funds were to be used for a variety of purposes, including funding overtime for additional patrols on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in the downtown. That appropriation, coincidentally, is approximately equal to the amount that these increased patrols will cost for the full fiscal year. So, I mean, that's a significant expenditure, and in my view, one that's being made necessary by a few problem bar owners in the downtown. Certainly not all of them, and maybe not even a majority. So the fiscal impact of the situation we have is serious. And then to hear the chief say last week in his comments that that despite the assurances we got at the public meeting we had a few months ago, that a number of establishment owners were willing to implement some of the suggested recommendations voluntarily, aside from, Hook Slide Kelly's, which the chief singled out was doing that, and a few other places that had been doing that already, there really hadn't been a change in some of these other places. Now, in fairness to them, some of them said, we're not doing it until you make us. So, so we need to make them. And, you know, it was also a little disappointing to hear that things had been progressing slowly at the License Commission, although I understand that they met also last week and that some progress is being made along those lines. So I think, you know, if things got sidetracked for whatever reason, I'm not particularly, you know, looking to point fingers or cast blame, but I do think it's important that the council stay engaged in this issue and proactive on this issue. It appears to me, at least for the moment, that you know, people are kind of rowing all the oars in the same direction again, and so hopefully that will continue. So that, you know, that's really the reason for the motion. I think we need to stay on this issue. I'm cautiously optimistic that everybody's going to do that. There needs to be some changes made, and it looks like we're making progress toward that.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just want to echo the sentiments of Councilor Martin. I mean, when we had that meeting, we had members of the License Commission here, and everybody heard the same thing, and I thought that everybody was on the same page. And it doesn't, and so it's disheartening to see a couple of months later that really nothing's been done at all. And I think, unless there's some objection, I think what might be a good idea is if we get the minutes, if the minutes that are done from the License Commission meetings are forwarded to the City Council, just so that we have an idea of what they're doing. I would bet you that that the minutes are very good. I think that Mr. Nguyen from the License Commission does a really good job, and so I would expect that the minutes are really good. And but I think it would be a good idea if we could get those minutes from their meetings, so we can see exactly what it is, what decisions they're making, and why they're making those decisions. I have heard from time to time that the License Commission faults the police department, that the police department faults the License Commission. You know, it shouldn't be like that. Everybody should be working and heading in the same direction. So if we could, if there's no objection, I'd like to as part of this, part of Councilor Martin's motion, if we could just get the minutes for the foreseeable future on exactly what they're doing, I think it'd be helpful.
Sure. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Lowell.
I want to concur with Councilor Martin and Kennedy, and thanks Councilor Martin for bringing this forward. Again, we said at that meeting, there were two people here from the commission, and I thought it was done. We came back, the superintendent of police and the manager made some suggestions, and the council voted on it, and we sent it back. And to be at this point, weeks later, there's really no reason for it whatsoever. But I just want to thank Councilor Martin for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Manager, what is the status of Councilor Martin's motion is implementing the regulations that were discussed? I specifically remember that night that we were going to come back in a couple of weeks, and Councilor Broderick, in hindsight, Councilor Broderick wanted to make sure we dotted our T's and dotted our I's and crossed our T's. Where are we? And I think I am concurring with my colleagues that, as I did last week, I thought it was a done deal. I thought we were moving on, and that we were getting cooperation, and that this was taking place. Well, where are we with the status of those, and where are we moving? Are we moving in the direction? It seems that nobody really knows exactly what is going on with those regulations or recommendations that we put forward.
Mr. Manager.
Well, that's basically what the motion is, requesting the status report of progress. I can tell you, we'll put a more formal report together as I think has been discussed. The recommendations were made, or we had quite a bit of discussion on the regulations that night that we had the meeting. We had 2 members of the License Commission here. They heard that. We had a follow-up meetings with 1 member of the License Commission offline with the police superintendent as well as the city solicitor, where they went over a number of ideas. Based upon that, we brought back the regulations to the council. They were voted as an endorsement. They were then forwarded on to the License Commission, which took them and has basically been holding on to them, reviewing them. There has been some discussion, and those will show up in the minutes with some of their comments. But we had a meeting just last week, last Friday afternoon, with the solicitor and the police superintendent with the License Commission to go over those. And some progress was made, not all the progress we'd like to see, but essentially the License Commission has not taken up the issue as quickly as I think any of us would like. And but that's the sort of a summary of where we are with this.
It was frustrating to hear last week from the chief of police, and I had thought that most of that transfer was going to overtime, but it isn't. But I think what was frustrating is that his comments were that things are still things haven't changed much downtown since that meeting, since these regulations were put in place, since we made these recommendations. So I don't understand I don't understand why it has taken so long to make progress downtown, knowing that was a bad situation at Fortunato's, that we had known this for quite some time, and that it should be a priority that we get a hold of things downtown. And there's another motion coming forward whether we should, the feasibility of it. I mean, either, we're not getting cooperation, then initiative should have been taken. And I think you should have taken the initiative, Mr. Manager. You work for us that they're not working downtown. This is the report. This is the progress. There is no progress. We have 1 bar cooperating. The police have taken an aggressive approach on public urination, and that's a good thing, and there was information to support that. However, things have not changed, so we need to take the next step, not as a result of an overtime request. So maybe it's just frustration on my behalf that and I'm not down there at night, so I don't know, and we can only go by either what we see in the papers or what we receive for reports. But to me, I wanted to see swift action by virtue of the motion that night to put these in place. And I'm going to support the next motion because I think if we're not getting the cooperation, that we need to take stronger, or we just need to implement the ordinances, because things haven't changed and they're not going to change unless we adopt some ordinances. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next motion by Councilor Martin, to request the city manager have solicitor report on the feasibility of adopting ordinances implementing regulations suggested by the police superintendent. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason for this is I think we should be proceeding along parallel tracks, and I realize that some of these, recommendations that came out of the police department are probably within the exclusive jurisdiction of the License Commission, but maybe not all of them are. And so this is really a request to see what the council can legally enact on its own, as opposed to what's the exclusive jurisdiction of the License Commission.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott.
Question to either the city manager or the solicitor, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to check. I mean, there are some establishments in the city that will be affected by an ordinance change, i.e. a time closing. And it's unfortunate that they're getting caught with, they're going to have to close as a result of other disturbances or other, bars or entities not abiding by the law or doing what's right. Is there any way to give the licensing commission jurisdiction to allow some, those establishments with no problems, never have had any problems, to stay open to a certain time and others not? I mean, I think the answer is no, but I wanted to ask the question.
Well, I
Mr.
think,
Manager.
if I may, Counselor, I think both in the last motion and this motion, the motions that have been made by the council and been subject to a vote of the council, asking us to do certain things, then we're being asked to answer the motions tonight. So the issue here is the feasibility of adopting ordinances. One, we have to determine the feasibility, and then second is to consider the implementation of those, which would address your concern. So I don't think we have an answer for you on that tonight.
It's just a yes or no, Mr. Manager. If you don't know the answer, then I'd like to get it from the solicitor, because she should know what the statute says.
Is that a request
Ma-
to the solicitor?
Mr. Mayor, through you to the solicitor.
Madam Solicitor.
The narrow question, beyond what the manager had just addressed, your more recent question with respect to, are there methods available to the License Commission to target restaurants or bars, in this case, that are having repeated problems? And there are methods available to the License Commission, historically, traditionally. We haven't been following those. That is the recommendation of the Law Department. It will continue to be the recommendation of the Law Department that that we begin to utilize the tools that are available to us in the Mass General laws to be able to target certain establishments that are creating problems, and instead of all the establishments looking at, say, a change of hours, that only those where there is no longer a public need, or if there's a determination that there's not a public need for a particular establishment to be open until a particular time, that those things be done. But to Councilor Martin's point, these are tools that are available exclusively to the License Commission, and they either ultimately will be used or not used.
Mr. Mayor, so the short answer is yes. We can establish certain times for certain entities, and that is available to us. Okay, thank you. Just want a yes or no. I get your explanation. I don't want to hear it again.
Counselor,
you.
You asked a question.
If I could
We'll
respond.
hear an answer.
It's not a just simple yes or no. There are methods of addressing the issue in a way that different establishments may be looked upon by the License Commission through a different analysis, and you will come to a varying result, perhaps, with respect to times. And so again, if that's your question, not everyone has to be treated in the same way if you're looking at it based on a public need analysis. But it's really not just a simple yes or no, unless the question is really, are there some tools available to look at it in a particular way? And the answer to that would be, yes, there are tools available. But it was just a question in terms of how you had phrased that I just wanted to clarify.
All right, let me make it, can I follow up? Let me make it more simple. We have the issue and the discussion of bars in the downtown. The issue is whether we can close them earlier, all of them. I mean, whether we close them, and does it affect everybody? Or can we do it just to those establishments that have been deemed a problem? That was, I don't think I can make it any more
that's
simple.
fine. That's
And I think you've answered the question that there are tools available,
Correct.
and that we're going to get the report, and that we can take a look at it that way.
That's right.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick, and then Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the difficulty in answering the question is the definition of we. We as city councilors, or we as a city through our license commission. The motion asks what we can as city councilors do that we may not need to rely on the license commission. But the question of whether or not there are methods we can take to treat different establishments differently, I think we have to break it down into two groups. The we, sitting here as a body as a city council, I think we have one answer, and the we as a city through our license commission. And I think that may have been where the difficulty is in a yes or no question, because I know we spent several hours on this at a special meeting, and we came up with, I think they were called special conditions and general conditions, Mr. Mayor, through you to the solicitor. And the special conditions were going to be something someone could come in for a special permit to stay open later, for instance, as opposed to general conditions that would be required to be followed by everybody. So the answer is yes, that was our plan. And I think it's been derailed temporarily or slowed down, and that's what we have to jumpstart and get that back on track. Now, whether or not we can go around the License Commission, I think is, or take action on our own, that we don't have to wait for the License Commission, is, the motion, I think. But I think it was clear that we can treat different establishments differently by rewriting our conditions and imposing special versus general on some conditions such as cameras and closing times. So I think we did address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin and then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The whole point, I think, of the suggestions made by the police department was to not, so we wouldn't have to change the time, the closing time. I think the problem the police encounter is at closing time. And if that's at 2 o'clock, the problem's at 2 o'clock. If you made it 3 o'clock, the problem would be at 3 o'clock. If you made it 1 o'clock, the problem would be at 1 o'clock. It's all of the places emptying out at the same time, which was why their suggestion was for, at a certain point, alcohol stops being served. Not the place closed, certain time, entertainment stops, alcohol stops, lights go on, and as people finish, the last drink they've been served or whatever, and they make their way to go home, that time is staggered. And so there's not this mad rush of people out into the street at the same time. So, I don't want this discussion to kind of get derailed into why can't we just close the times? Because and maybe places that are problems should have their hours curtailed, and I think, at least my understanding is the License Commission does have the power to do that. But this is the bigger problem that we're trying to get at, is all the places, maybe ones where there aren't even problems. Just the fact that there's a lot of people at the place, and it's emptying in the downtown streets at the same time all the others are. So it's more than just the closing time, and that's why the proposals were as lengthy as they were.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just briefly, my recollection when we had the meeting was the goal was to eliminate hooliganism downtown late at night. That's what we were trying to do. And my recollection was that in discussing that new regulations that we were going to impose had to be imposed uniformly for everybody, but also that we would allow for there to be waivers so that bars or nightclubs or whatever who did not have any problems would be able to seek a waiver from those regulations from the License Commission. And assuming that they had a good record, they would be able to do that. Isn't that still what we should be talking about?
Madam Solicitor.
Sure. We did have that discussion, Councilor, and as Councilor Broderick had noted as well, there was also the approach of having general conditions and special conditions. One of the things that, as we went through the process, when these regulations were forwarded off to the License Commission for their consideration sometime in March, there was a recommendation that we look at actually consolidating the special conditions, folding them into the general conditions, and the License Commission reserving for itself the right to impose special conditions when appropriate. And those would be some of the things potentially such as video cameras or things of that nature. What I was referring to earlier in response to Councilor Elliott's question was statutorily, beyond the regulations that any License Commission can set up, statutorily, a License Commission also has the ability, based on a public need, to look at a particular establishment and determine, based on a variety of factors, that there is perhaps no longer or not a public need for that establishment to be open to that particular time. And that's completely separate and apart from whatever rules and regulations the License Commission would potentially enact.
But that has to be based on public need.
Based on the public need, correct. And
Well, you can see what, it sounds to me like that could get murky.
It's very broad. It's intended to be very broad. It's intended to give the License Commission broad authority, great discretion, and it's also something that the state does not review. So the review becomes very, very limited. It's used by a lot of communities as an excellent tool for addressing these types of problems.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Laurie to request the city manager locate a proper room for city councilors' use for meetings with constituents and other needs.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I was looking for an area where councilors can meet with people from around the city. A lot of times, it's just before the meetings or subcommittee meetings, people will come in and want to speak to a particular councilor. It could be during the course of a week. If a councilor has some time, I respectfully say that, I'm retired, but most of the other, all the other councilors work, but they may have time during the week that they may want to meet with someone from throughout the city, and right now, there's no place for us to meet. And I was just wondering if there was a location, or if one could, if not now, as things have moved, can one be planned down the road? Thank you.
I would just say, certainly, you know, through our office, I'd be happy to, either through the mayor's reception room or through the office, work with any councilor that would like to set up office hours. Councilor Lloyd.
You know, I thought of that too, but many times I've come here before a meeting and the mayor's reception room is being used. There's different functions in there. I think there's a couple of boards that meet in there. So that's not always available. And as the administration gets them, we get emails every day, calls every day. It's not something you always plan. So that's why I brought the motion forward. If there was some way we could just, you know, plan to meet people, say, sure, we'll meet you at City Hall at such a location.
Sure. Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, let me just say that I think this is a good motion by Councilor Laurie. I can remember a time long ago when there was a room like this that people could use. I know that I had a meeting last week here at City Hall with, there was a constituent meeting, and we met in the mayor's reception room, but it was really just by chance that it was not being used. Otherwise, I'm not really sure where we would have gone. But so anyways, I think this is a good idea, and probably just see how it works out or how often it's used.
Sure. Councilor Elliott?
Look, I think it's, the motion is well-intended, but I think that there are so many needs in the city for municipal purposes that we do have the cloakroom. Maybe we can, I mean, it was used for another purpose before. There's really no reason why it can't be used as, it is a city council area, and perhaps if we put some furniture or something in there, that could be used, but.
Besides a bed?
I mean, in addition to, I mean, there's a council chamber, there's the mayor's reception room, I think there's ample space, but, so, and I understand the intent of the motion, but I think there are so many other needs. And let me just bring one forward. The Lowell Commission on Disability, they asked for some office space, and they were told there wasn't any office space, so just want to be consistent here, and that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And again, if anybody has any requests, they can always contact the office, and we can try and work for an appropriate time. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Mendoza.
I have a similar concern that, I mean, it might be well-intentioned, but could be rarely used, and it's valuable real estate. Tend to be overcrowded in many of our buildings as far as municipal services go. I mean, we could take this up later, but I think a good idea is to start with trying to utilize the mayor's office, the mayor's reception room, possibly the cloakroom, and then when we have examples where that doesn't work, then maybe pursue this as an alternative to, is there another possibly more private space? But I really believe that the mayor's office could be utilized in the mayor's reception room just by coordinating it possibly with the mayor's assistant, just to make sure it's not booked in advance.
Sure. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing. I think maybe we try it going through the mayor's office. We were trying to find space for the clerk to be able to expand downstairs. We've got the Commission on Disabilities. I think at this point, we should give it maybe a concerted effort to go through the mayor's office and use the space we have. And if it becomes an issue, then, I won't have a problem supporting it. But I think that, I know personally more often than not, if I'm going to meet someone, it's maybe during the day and you run out and meet them, for coffee or somewhere, or on site somewhere. So I don't know if we would necessarily have to tie up a room when we do have some critical space. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
I just wanted to say that the motion is just asking the city manager for a
It's a
report. I
request.
think it's a good motion, so move the question.
All those in favor, signify by
Wait,
saying
wait,
aye.
wait, it's not asking for a report, it's asking to locate a room for us to meet with constituents.
I mean,
Mr. Mayor, that Councilor Elliott is absolutely true, but I would imagine that if the city manager was either able to locate a room or not able to locate a room, that there would be a report as to what that action was next week.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
So voted.
No.
Councilor Broderick?
I'm sorry, opposed.
Opposed?
Take
We'll take a roll call.
Counselor Elliott.
No.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Laurie.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Madonza.
No.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Nguyen.
No.
Counselor Broderick.
No.
5 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Laurie. Request the city manager to develop a proper plan to annually honor retirees, former board members, volunteers, and others who have contributed to the city. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've only been here a short time, but I haven't seen anything done for people who retire after 25, 30 years. I have seen people come in and leave boards. And, I asked, or another council will ask if we could send them a letter. But I think after serving the city for whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 35 years, that there should be some type of recognition. We could have something to say thank you. It doesn't have to be formal, something I could wear a polo shirt to. But something we could do for the, just for the retirees and people who've served the city. That was the idea.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that when I was the mayor many moons ago, and on the school side, when we were going to have a school committee meeting on a particular Wednesday, it's like a month went by, and all those that retired within the month, sometimes nobody retired, and they saved the list for the second month. They would meet in the mayor's reception room before the school committee meeting took place. Yeah. They had a gathering, and everybody would come in, and they would be notified that we're going to honor you. And they all met there, and everybody that was going to go to the school committee meeting met with them. And it was really a nice little celebration, similar to what we did to our Pakistani friends. And they did attend for some period of time here this evening, but I guess they were getting a little tired and they left. I don't blame them, but so that's what I wanted to say.
They enjoyed their trip to DPW, but they decided to
We had no
bail
out-of-state
early.
travel for us to form a committee to go to Pakistan, but I'm upset about that, but that's okay.
There actually is going to be tomorrow reception in the mayor's reception room for a number of the retired teachers.
Oh, see that?
Before the school committee,
good.
so-
Oh, yes.
That's good.
Request approved. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Laurie.
Well, I had asked that we have a proper plan, and I was just wondering, what are we going to do? I know the manager's office would be involved, possibly the mayor's office, but you're just kind of pushing it off. Which I think, anyway, Councilor Mercia talked about the teachers, but I'd like to see something done. I don't know who would appoint it, maybe the manager, maybe the mayor would appoint the committee, but
Sure. Mr. Manager?
Just, my understanding, it hasn't been a vote yet, but my understanding was it was going to be put to a vote, and we would, if voted, we would work on a plan to do
Yeah,
that.
that'd be fine, thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up, in our packet about a few weeks ago, we got a list of like 5 people that retired from the fire department.
Exactly.
And so we knew that. We could have notified all those 5 gentlemen, put them in the mayor's reception room, and uniformly said, thank you very much for your time and energy spent for the city of Lowell. So I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know where we'll get the money, but we could probably get some pastry or something. That'd be like we did.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Before we adjourn, could I just suspend the rules to bring up 2 issues here?
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon.
And
All those in favor signify
Thank
by
you.
saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first issue is in regards to Riviere College that graduated over the weekend, I believe Saturday, and held their graduation ceremony at the Songus Arena, and there were no parking lots available open. I know the Ayotte garage was open, but we own a little portion of that parking lot there. We could have derived some money from that, and nobody was around to coordinate to say that it should be, someone should be there collecting some money. And we missed an opportunity to generate funds. Having said that, that was my issue. And it's going to be the time of year now where there'll probably be more graduations. Please have it manned so we could generate some funds. I don't know what's coming up next, but we need to be on top of that.
Mr. Manager?
If I may, Council, I'm aware of the situation there. There needs to, we've talked to the Songus Center about this. They had not notified the parking department that
Right.
there was an event there. We try to keep a calendar, in fact,
Yeah,
of all
and
the
I'm not
events, and
saying
that
it's
one-
our fault.
No, no.
I'm saying
But
some-
we believe me,
Right,
when we have the
right.
opportunity to make some money, we,
Okay, that's
do.
good. And lastly, I just want to remind the public that the Lowell Cemetery is planning the annual Memorial Day Remembrance event on Sunday, May 20th at 12:30, and it's quite an event that takes place. Irene Finneral arranges all this. She has veterans organizations, Gold Star Wives and Mothers, the Lowell Cemetery trustees are there, Lowell High School Junior ROTC, the UMass Lowell Air Force ROTC, the Lowell Fire Department and Police Department Honor Guard, Boy Scouts, everybody's there, the Lowell High School Band, and we're all welcome. And so I just wanted to say that the Black Hawk helicopter would be there, the national anthem, the laying of the wreaths, the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a very, very honorable, it's a wonderful event, and they put a lot of work into it. So I'm reminding the public about Sunday. Please make an effort to go. You'll never forget the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the experience.
Thank you. Under suspension of the rules, Councilor?
Just a point of personal privilege. Today is my grandson's birthday, so happy second birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Woo-hoo! You're so cute.
Congratulations. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.